3. All right, guys, it's Friday night. I've been waiting for this one for a while. I've got Wally from the Beautiful Music record label here, the man, the myth, the legend, the most generous person in record label history. How you doing, Wally?
Good. Thanks, Joe, for inviting me to come on. And I heard your interview with Terry Banks. It was hilarious. And Terry maybe exaggerates a bit but we do give away a lot of free stuff. And I just heard him kind of joking away how you buy one CD, you get 7. So sometimes that does happen. Actually, the last few ones, if you buy one, I think I said 4. So that was still a pretty good deal. I know I was interviewed with Near Perfect Pitch, and the guy says, you buy a CD and there's Wally with a pitchfork bringing your package. But there's a bit of truth to that. And we do, because we're not doing it for money, it's actually great because we can have fun with it. And my goal has always been to share music. So if I have music I can share with people and they buy something, I'm going to give them more than their money's worth.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Well, we love music, as you could tell. I'm a big fan, so I'm always buying music too. And
you see, you got your CD collection back there. Look at that.
That's just probably 1/100. So I got tons of music, and I'm still buying. Even today was Bandcamp Friday, so I bought a bunch of stuff today.
Nice,
as well.
Yeah, nice.
Just to help support bands, and of course I'd probably buy more but I got to be careful I don't spend too much money. But it's music's always been a passion for me for many, many years. And I mean, we started out just with friends sharing cassettes, and mixtapes and stuff like that. And then I got to know the people here at the local radio station, the university station. And then they kind of exposed me to so much other music that I'd never heard before. It was great. Yeah. And so our love of music just kind of continued to grow. And we've, I started collecting. I worked at a used record store here in Ottawa for a little while, but not actually officially working. It was, I said, listen, I can help you out, but I don't really want to get paid to just get some records. And so I would work for the records, and it started out, this is quite a few years ago, like I'd work and I could get $10 credit, which you could buy back then 2 vinyl albums.
That's awesome.
So it was fantastic for an hour. And after I'd been there for a while, they said, they didn't even care, just take whatever you want.
Nice.
And the place was stacked. I mean, it opened my eyes to so much other music, which I may not have bought. So I went back and started collecting some stuff from the 60s that, because I started, in the late 70s into sort of the punk new wave. And, but now I could explore, like went back and collected stuff like old Kinks records, old Creation stuff, and even a bit of country, but mostly old rock and roll stuff, so old Who records. And so that's kind of fun. Yeah. And
that's fun.
Yeah, so I've built a kind of a massive vinyl collection as well, which I still have most of it. I didn't get rid of it when everybody else did. So some of it's probably worth a few dollars. And
nice.
Actually, as a matter of fact, I was buying a lot of vinyl when everybody was dumping their vinyl.
So you were like, come on, yeah.
Well, because everyone was going to CDs, and I was still, I like CDs as well, but I
do too. Yeah.
I thought if people are getting rid of their vinyl really cheap, I
bought a
bunch of stuff. Yeah. And so it got a lot of cool stuff that way. And some of it now becomes collectible, which is kind of cool. Although I never do it to sell, it's.
Well, that's just it. You buy it and you physically listen to it. Like guys sit there and they buy it and they just like sit on it. It's like, no, man, I buy it to listen to it. I listen to it like a CD or whatever.
Yeah, and I even bought sometimes more than one copy, thinking, well, maybe I'll sell one later. But usually I bump into somebody who's a big fan of the band, and I'll say, well, I have 2 copies. I just give it to him for free.
You're just like, just take it. It's fine.
Yeah, whatever. Well, I never was into, trying to make money off of music. I always thought it's something that you love and you want to share with people. And that's sort of how the whole label kind of grew out of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's
it was
awesome.
very kind of organic, or just kind of a natural progression. And I had quite a few friends that were playing music, and so we thought, why not? Well, I used to joke with them, saying like, why don't you, why don't you release this? This is great stuff. And
Yeah.
at one of the shows where a bunch of my friends were playing, it was the guys from Skytone. They weren't called Skytone at the time, but they they said, Wally, you've always talked about it'd be cool to have a record label. Why don't you start your label and you could release our stuff? And then I had a friend who did websites. He said, I'll do your website. And then I had a brother who did host websites. He said, I'll host you. And it just was kind of a joke.
Just
But
snowballed
just
on you.
everything, it just kind of started. And then it went from there. And since I love music, I thought, okay, let's do this. So we released an EP. They were called Tremolo at the time. That was there before they became Skytone. And they actually won a competition, a battle of the bands too. So they had free recording. So it was pretty inexpensive to kind of get it going. Yeah. And what we did too, like really anybody could do it. It wasn't, what we did is we bought like, I think 500 or 1,000 blank CDRs, yeah. But we got them made with our logo, yeah. Printed with a little space to print the number. Yeah. And originally we got stamps, and we'd stamp the numbers on the CDs and we'd burn them ourselves. Yeah. And then after that, we went a little bit more, like got them made, but because it's just so time consuming, we didn't have the time.
It takes a long time.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun, and then of course I could pursue it a little more. And since I like a lot of obscure bands, I always thought it'd be cool to do a tribute to bands that maybe people don't know. And so one of them was a band from England called Television Personalities. Right. They had kind of a semi-hit called Part-Time Punks, which was big in England for a little while. And they also had a song called I Know Where Sid Barrett Lives. And so they had sort of a fan base, just kind of a bit of a following, but not really big, and no one in Canada had ever heard of them, and probably not too many people in the States even. But they had quite a few like diehard fans with websites where fans visited, and so I got in touch with a few of the people who ran the website and just told them we were thinking of doing a tribute, and I have some covers already, and I'll contact the bands and see if they're okay with that. And then after that, they posted on the website, and then I was actually getting emails and messages from all over the world. People wanted to be on this tribute. And I thought, this is so weird, because, like this is a joke where, I still joke that our label's kind of an imaginary record label. It's not a real record label. We're just having fun, right? Yeah. And most of the time it didn't even really exist, because we never really had time even to deal with the label, so it just would exist for a few hours a year, but we'd actually do something with it. And and the funniest was we even got emails from some bands who I really respected and I followed. One of the guys was Nicky Sudden. He was, again, big in the kind of British underground, and he had a band called the Jacobites, and they've had a few albums out. And recently, he passed away a while back, but they've had some of their stuff reissued and stuff. But he actually contacted me and said he loved television. He was friends with one of the guys from the band, and he recorded a cover, but it never really had time to finish it. He goes, if you'd like, we'll finish it. And I think, this is great. I nearly fell off my chair. And then I had some guy from Sweden who was in a band and had a label, and he said, I was in a bar in Sweden and I heard about your tribute. This is just really weird, the internet age, how word travels, because just in their basement, it's just a couple of kids having fun, and then people were finding out about this tribute. And so we kind of then covers started coming in like crazy. And so we joked, well, we'll have to do, multiple volumes, not just one, and I said, we'll do a 10-volume set. And the funny thing is that the covers are still coming in. So I've had a guy today that sent me a cover of a friend of his that did a cover. And so we've actually done 4 CDs, and because we had so many contributions to the tribute, we actually would put out a bonus disc with every CD. So every volume has 30 to 40 like covers. We just jam packed them. And so we've done 4 volumes already, and we're working on the 5th volume. So it's just so funny how it kind of, but it's interesting is this band, they're very obscure, but they were sort of like the Velvet Underground, where they said anyone who heard them started a band. Well, they were sort of like this,
Yeah.
and they actually had a sound similar to the Velvet Underground.
Okay.
But they inspired people like Alan McGee, who then started up Creation Records, and everybody's heard of the bands that were on his label, like Oasis and Teenage Fan Club, My Bloody Valentine, Swerve Driver, and all those bands. But Alan McGee, often when he's in interviews, he'll cite Dan Tracy, who's one of the television personalities, as being his big influence, and he modeled his label after Dan. And Dan actually ran 2 different record labels back then. So it was kind of they're an interesting band that they seem to have a lot of fans scattered all over the world, but we've sort of gathered them all.
That's amazing.
We've had bands from Norway, which, before I never knew any bands from Norway, bands from Japan, from Sweden.
From Japan,
Germany. Yeah, we've had several bands from Japan that sent us like covers of television personality songs.
That's crazy.
It's just, and then throughout the States, the whole, because they were involved in the mod scene, there's a whole mod scene in the States as well as in the West Coast. So we got in touch with Bart from the Shambles, who was a big kind of guy in the whole mod scene in the LA area. And so then he helped us out to get in touch. And what was cool is I would get in touch with bands, like obscure bands that no one's ever heard of. And a lot of them had been retired, but they agreed to kind of get back into music and record covers for us. So for me, this is like fantastic. Here's a band. And I know Terry mentioned this, that we kind of bonded over some of the most obscure music. And it's so true, because when we got in touch and, we were talking about bands like even the Barracudas, who had they had a surf garage sound, and they had a couple albums in the UK. But the guys from Ottawa, but Terry Banks actually met him and hung out with him when he was in England. And Terry didn't tell you this, he's very humble, but he ran the label as well. And he released one of the Barracudas albums.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for leaving that detail out. Yeah.
And that's another way how we sort of connected, that we were talking about. And then another band, he was into a bit of the mod scene, and he liked this band called the Direct Hits, who actually had a song or an album and a single on Dan Tracy's record label. And so Terry knew who this band was, and he actually liked them. And I'm thinking, this is so cool. And all these obscure bands like the Impossible Years, who released 1 EP, Terry actually had a cassette tape by them. And it's like, so we get talking about all these bands, and we realized we like a lot of the same music. So we just kind of connected. And so when he sent me, like he told you about how we kind of connected, is every time bands would connect with a band, we'd ask them, do you want to do a cover of television personality songs? Most of them didn't know who they were, so we kind of introduced them to the band. But some of the bands, like Terry knew who they were, but by the time I got in touch with him, his band that had just released an album on Slumberland Records had pretty well was dying down, and they said they don't do a lot of covers. So he said, that he's not really into it. But I kept pestering Terry over and over to do cover. And so eventually with Dot Dash, he did record a cover of a song called Jack and Rory Stories for our volume 4 of our tribute, which I don't know if I sent you, but I'll send you that.
I think I have it.
Yeah.
I think I have
so
it. You said, honestly, like, you sent me a fuckload. It was crazy when you're like, I'm just going to get a little package together. And I opened that package. And this guy sent me, I counted, it was like 16 CDs. I was like, what the hell is that?
We
but
put
they're all good. But they're all good. That's the
good.
problem.
I'm glad. Yeah.
No, they're so good.
The thing is, when you're limited in time and resources, and we're doing it for fun, I'm not going to release something for other people. So I'm only going to release stuff I really like.
Well, that's
so
it.
There's a little bit of quality control that way, right?
True, yeah, but that's really cool because like I never would have heard a Dot Dash or Skytone
They're
or
amazing. Yes,
God damn, I got my box here, but everything you sent me, I was like, Jesus, this is great.
yeah.
Like
Did I send
I
you?
finally listened to Jangle Waves, like the album Jangle Waves in its entirety today, and I was like, that's a masterpiece. Like that's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that.
Well, I'm amazed that they don't get a chance to be heard. As a matter of fact, Terry didn't tell you the story.
Well, that's why I wanted to do this too, is to help them.
Yeah.
To help.
Well, yes, and I really appreciate that. Like Terry, like the music he was releasing, like, and not only that, but consistent to have 6 albums in a row. There aren't very many bands. Like I've been collecting music for years. There aren't many bands that put out 6 albums in a row where they're consistently good. Like usually they'll put 2 or 3 and then they're kind of flop.
Then, yeah.
Yeah, the quality. But Terry, every album gets better and better. And I keep telling him, like, because we're not like a big label, I said, Terry, go on a real label. Like you could be huge. So we're trying to kick people off our
get
label
out of
if they
here.
want to get
You're
popular.
too good for us now. You're too big. Yeah.
And we used to joke that in our contract we'd put if they get popular, they kicked off the label because we just don't have the resources to handle that. The reality is we don't have contracts, so it's just a joke. Like it's a word of mouth thing. But I think they also like the fact that I'm not doing this for money, and I'm there promoting them and helping them. As you know, I'm always sending their music out to people, and so there's a lot of bands that we work with. Nobody knows who they are, but you know, I can get them some radio play. Yeah. I have friends, you know, kind of do radio shows all over the world now, so which is kind of nice. Like yourself, like there's a guy in Australia, as I mentioned. There's one guy in Germany, one guy in Spain. Some in the United States. I do a little feature on a UK radio show too, where I select 2 songs a week and they play it. And then I do a little feature on that NWR called Wally University, where I would do a little kind of, I don't talk much. I just send them some songs and the links of how these bands are connected or the history of a band. So that way, like, you know, say you like the Waterboys. Well, I show them that before the Waterboys, Mike Scott was in a band called Another Pretty Face and released a bunch of singles on his own label. And then he was also in a band called Funhouse and released a couple of songs on that. And even before that, he was in a band called Death in Venice. So trying to tell people that there's more to music that to discover if you're willing to do some digging and connect the dots, which I love doing. And, you know, bands like Teenage Fan Club in the UK, we did a little feature showing that just out of that one band alone, you could probably connect about 100 bands out of Scotland that have links to the band members, everything from the BMX Bandits to Primary 5 to what's the name of the Snow Goose is a new band, a new album that came out this year by one of the guys who played with Teenage Fan Club and BMX Bandits. And they're just, the connections are just amazing.
So many degrees of separation. And
Francis McDonald, who was the drummer with Teenage Fan Club, he had his own record label called Shoeshine Records.
Shoeshine, I've heard of Shoeshine Records.
Yeah, and they released actually some stuff in the States as well. They worked with a guy who does a radio show on WFMU, Michael Shelley. So Michael Shelley and him formed a band called Cheeky Monkey. I think they released 1 or 2 albums. And so there's all these kind of cool connections, which I love. And so we do this little feature while university talking about some of the connections of bands and stuff. So, but as you know, I love music and I love digging into the history and stuff. And through the interesting thing is we did the Television Personalities tribute, but we also did I thought, let's do a compilation of just pop songs that we like, and also people started, because they think you're a label, they start sending you music, which is great. That's almost the reason I thought this is fantastic.
It's a good way to
get free music, right?
That's
just
right.
Like doing a radio show or
Exactly.
doing, you know, like a blog or something, you get free music. And since that was, so I didn't care so much. You know, I didn't have a lot of hobbies, so music was always my hobby, and I was always spending the money on, blank cassettes or CDRs or music I'm buying. So I just funneled it more into doing the label thing. And it just kind of blew up from there where I got more. And so what we did for our first pop compilation, I thought, well, I'll connect with some of the bands that I like and ask them if we could use some of their songs. So we did that. There was a guy from England who played in the June Brides. His name was Phil Wilson, who I really liked. So he let us use one of the songs that he had recorded. I really liked a lot of the mod, the second wave of mod in the early 80s. That the Jam were the forerunners, but there was like 100 bands that no one had ever heard of, and there was one called the Jet Set, and they were like the Monkees, but of the 80s generation. They had like this fake TV show in a car and everything, but the guy from that band let me use one of his songs on the compilation, and then other bands kept sending us stuff in, and so we made that. It's called Into the Jet Stream of Pop, and it was a compilation of a bunch of our favorite bands plus new bands we discovered. And so then that got us sort of more people interested. And through those connections and the connection with television, we got even more people starting to send me stuff. And usually they want us to release, and I wish I could release more, but I just don't have the time and the money. But from that though, we got to know bands like the Yellow Melodies and Roy Moller was another one from Scotland. And so then they kept sending me their stuff, and I'm going, this is great. As a matter of fact, the Yellow Melodies were funny because I said, would you like to do a cover of a television personality song? And then like a few weeks later, he sends me 6 covers. I'm thinking, okay, well, this is going to be awkward. How am I going to put 6 covers on a tribute? So why don't we do an EP of just your 6 covers? So we did that. And then he sent me his new album. Do you want to release it? And the album was great. And so I thought, okay, if I have time, we'll throw that in the mix. And now he's working on a couple of EPs, and he wants me to release the album, which will combine a bunch of the songs from the EPs. He said late this year, but it's probably going to be next year. I think everyone got behind schedule a bit because of the whole virus. They couldn't record or go into studios or practice. So I think Terry talked about that a bit too, right? And they were hoping to actually have an album out by now, but they were almost pumping out an album a year, those guys.
Those guys are fast. Yeah, it was cool to talk to him and just hear how they do it.
They combined a lot of cool sounds that I was fans of, like, some of the early REM sound mixed with the Jam, a bit of like Joy Division, a bit of Wire, a bit of the Undertones, but he blend all these styles together, and it sounds familiar, but yet it's a unique sound.
It sounds familiar, but it still sounds new, right?
Yeah. Cool. And they really, if I think everyone I've given a chance to hear it have loved them. Yeah. And in fact, for a while there, they would have more reviews than any major band. Like you queried their name, and there's like hundreds of reviews, and they were all positive. And very few bands get that kind of attention.
You get a couple good ones for sure, but you get a lot. I find you get a lot more negative than positive most of the time. But that's good. So that's awesome.
They got really, the reality is, sadly, nowadays, if this was years ago, they probably would have made a lot of money. Yeah. But no, people just don't buy music like they do. We'll sell, maybe 50 to 100 CDs, but I'll give away 500 or 600. So and it's funny because I've worked in finance most of my life, so I'm not stupid. I know what we're doing. We know we're losing money, but we're doing it to have fun. But we also want people who discover our label to really enjoy it, right? And I joke, the guy from Echo and the Bunnymen, Will Sargent, used to have a label called 92 Happy Customers. And I used to joke that would be our philosophy. We just want 92 happy customers. 92, yeah. I think everyone who's bought something from us, I doubt they were disappointed with what they got.
I don't see how they could be, to be honest. You guys have quite a variation of what you got, like I said, like
Did I send you any of the Armstrong stuff? Armstrong, no. It's a guy, he's more of kind of jangly guitar pop, inspired by a lot of the Scottish pop sounds like Aztec Camera, Prefab Sprout, Pearl Fishes, that kind of sound. And when, as a matter of fact, it was back in the days of MySpace, if you remember.
Yes,
MySpace.
I do remember MySpace. Yeah.
And at first, it was actually a good platform to connect with people. And back in those days, and I found his site because someone mentioned he sounded a bit like Aztec Camera or Roddy Frame, and so the bands would sell their stuff on their MySpace page. So I bought a copy of his album, and when I got it, I go, "This is great stuff. This guy's really talented."
Yeah.
And sadly, though, it was just him burning these CDs at home. And just doing like a black and white photocopied cover, like really plain. But if people saw it, they would just dismiss it or thinking, "Oh, this is some shabby demo." And I said, "Listen, can we, I'd like to release some of your stuff." And, I have a friend who does some of the designs, and he's quite good. So, he made it look really professional, and, we made up the CDs, and a lot of people really liked it. And so we've since done actually 3 albums with him. It's a one-man band, really. And his last album, we reissued that first CDR that I bought off of him. But what we did is we added a bunch of 8 bonus tracks on it. But we co-released it with a very cool label in England called Country Mile Records. Because I know the
Country Mile Records.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know John Langford. And
I've heard that name.
So John Langford has released a bunch of stuff on that label. It's a small label out of Wales, in the UK. And
that's where SLE Radio is based out of, is Wales, Newport.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So we got this connection now.
It's crazy.
With Wales. Yeah.
You're gonna have a show on there at the end of the night. I'll tell you what. If you want a radio show, you can have one on SLE. Promise.
I eventually will. I think I love music too much not to do it, and I'd like to share. And the other thing is, bands often send me stuff, and since I don't have the ability to release them, I'll say, "Listen, I'll help you promote it." And I have a few friends who are DJs at the station here, and I know other DJs. And so what I'll do is I'll get their permission. I'll make copies of the CD, or I'll put it on digital, and I'll share the files with people and get them some radio play. And bands just love that, and I love the fact that I can help them out, and then people will send me free music, so it's win-win. Yeah.
Well, put me on that list of people you send stuff to. If you get stuff, I'm happy to play whatever. Just send me whatever.
Sure. Oh, I'll send you. I don't know if you've heard it, but David Newton, he used to play in a band called the Mighty Lemon Drops. They were out of England.
The Mighty Lemon Drops.
They had a hit in the US, a couple of hits, and they released some albums there. But he just released an album with his new band, The Mighty Angels. I'll send it to you. It's phenomenal. It's a great album. And he does one song with the guy from Art Brut. It's another British label, Eddie Argos, and it's like a spoken word talking about all the music that he grew up with and inspired him. It's kind of a cool song, but the whole album is great. I'll send you the link to it because he gave me. I'll try to only send stuff that people give me permission to share, because I don't want to. But usually most bands, if I ask, they're going to say yes, because it's just getting them some more radio play or podcast play or Spotify listens, or even a review.
It can't hurt. Yeah.
No. And certainly, I prefer if people can go and support the musicians, because sadly, especially now, a lot of them can't make much money because they can't tour and stuff.
Well, it's the touring for sure, and then also just the whole way people consume everything now. Like, you look at your wall behind you there, dude. That's a lost art. That doesn't happen
people
anymore.
Just don't. And sadly, you keep reading these articles about Spotify, how they don't really pay people much royalties. And so the best way, if people can, is buy something physical, even if it's a T-shirt, right? Because usually they'll make a few dollars off of a in fact, I think I'm wearing a Dot Dash T-shirt underneath.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, there you go, Terry.
I didn't pay for that, though. I have to admit, Terry sent me one free. Now, the funny thing is I've never seen them live because they're based in Washington.
They're in Washington.
And I've seen some video footage, but I'd love to actually one day get a chance to see them live.
Yeah.
My brother and I we used to go to concerts like crazy. We were adding it up. I think it was over 1,000 bands we saw in a period of about 5 or 6 years, because we'd go to like anywhere from 3 to 4 bands a week. It's almost every night we go, and I was in a good situation. I mean, I lived at home. I didn't have a lot of expenses, but I worked as a waiter, and it was a place that wasn't very fancy, but it was like I used to joke like the McDonald's, but it was a high turnover. It was a deli, and I would make like $100 to $150 a night in tips alone, and I was like in high school or just finishing high school, and so I had tons of money to go to concerts. So we would go like almost we'd buy music, go to shows. We'd travel to Montreal, which is about 2 hours away. We'd even go to Toronto. So we went to tons and tons of shows back then. And back then you would even have some really cool big festivals. Like there was the Police Picnic, where they bring a lot of the Police would play, but they'd bring like 15 other bands with them. Or Heat Wave was like the first new wave festival in Toronto. And so we saw these like big shows, and then we went to a lot of smaller shows as well. And we saw bands like New Order and Echo and the Bunnymen and all of those bands when they were first starting out. Teardrop Explodes, and I mean, it was the whole new wave. So you name pretty well any new wave band we probably saw, or every punk band.
Every punk band.
We pretty well saw them all back then, and that was sort of the era. But then, of course, once you have a family, you have kids. I didn't go to as many concerts. Plus, I didn't have the money.
Yeah.
that I had, and then it's only in more recent years where I've had a chance to get out to a few more shows, and my tastes are pretty varied. Like I like a lot of different stuff. I still like a lot of the jangly guitar stuff, which is the label, but I like some of the electronic as well. Big fans of Kraftwerk, with German electronic band, and we actually had tickets to go see them in July, but sadly it got canceled.
Of course.
And we would try to catch bands that toured, but we had a lot more bands that used to come to Ottawa years ago. I guess it was cheaper to tour back then, but we saw bands like The Church from Australia in a small club here. We saw The Fall. We saw, REM even played a small club, and U2 played a small club before they were popular. Yeah. So there was all those, like we saw quite a few of those bands before they got huge. Right. And it was a lot of fun, but a lot of the bigger bands are the bands we like. Well, a lot of them don't make it to Ottawa. They'll come to Toronto, Montreal.
They'll stop, Toronto, Montreal, and then go down. They don't go back up.
They might go to Vancouver or something, but not too much in between, right? So,
talk about. I live in Regina, and fucking nobody.
You're the same.
Here. They skip. They'll go to they'll hit Winnipeg, and they'll be like, no, Calgary, Edmonton, maybe Red Deer, Overton.
And I can understand, because a lot of them coming from England, they're so used to going from one country to another in an hour. Well, here, if you want to go from one city, it's 5, 8, 10, 15 hours to go to the next city. So they just can't be bothered.
Just drive through, yeah.
And I'm sure it kills a lot of bands too, right? You often hear stories where, people come to the States and Canada, and it just kills them because they have no idea how big these countries are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I like talking to guys from the States when they're touring. They always talk about the time they tour Canada. It's like, that is a long drive, guys. It's like, it's like we just stayed on one highway. They stay on the number one.
I don't know if you've ever heard of the band Mission of Burma. They were from the States, but they played here at a small club, and they got a little more popular in the kind of over the years. But I connected with one of the guys later, and I said, it was a great show. And he goes, oh man, that was like the worst. He goes, they forgot to get him a hotel, so they had to sleep on the club, on the floor. And it's, the people spilled beer. It just stunk, right? And he says they had no place to sleep after that show. And it's the life of a musician in touring, especially if you're not like if you're not in the big leagues, like B-52s with their massage chairs.
That was hilarious. What a cool story that was.
Yeah,
Terry's got a ton of them.
Oh yeah, he didn't tell you the story about the guy from Nirvana when he used to go into this place. I don't know if it was a studio, and there's this guy always hanging out. Turns out it was one of the guys from Nirvana. So he, like, all these stories of people he's connected with and things that he didn't tell you too. He played with a band called Saint Christopher and got to tour all over Europe with them. They were one of the bands that were on the Sarah record label, who've recently had a lot of good publicity. They had a film made about them and a book written about that label. And it's just a small label, but they released I think 100 7-inch singles and a few CDs and albums, and then they shut it down. But a lot of great music came out of that label, and Terry hooked up somehow with the band and was in their band for a while and toured with them. And he told you a bit, like Danny Ingram connected with Swerve Driver, and then he played with Adam Franklin, who's the lead singer from Swerve Driver, on his solo album, solo tours. He didn't play on any of the albums that I'm aware of, but he played on the tours and stuff.
I like that story about how they picked him up. He's on a plane. He's learning the songs on the flight. Rubbing them out on a Walkman.
Yeah, it was a good interview. I love listening to Terry. Every time he interviews, he shares some different stories I hadn't heard before.
That was fun. I want to have him back to get more of those stories for sure.
Yeah, and another one, it was funny. It's my brother and I, we went, and Terry sometimes tells the story, but this was back in the 80s. We went to see the Stranglers, and my brother loved taking pictures. He still has a lot of amazing pictures that sadly no one's ever seen. And I keep bugging him. He's got to get them out and put them on a website or something. But it's the lead singer of the Stranglers jumps off the stage and takes my brother's camera. And actually he didn't find the camera, but then the security guard ended up catching my brother, took out the film. But we were kind of a little ticked at it. Because here we're not trying to make money. We just
love memories
that we like, right? For memories. So anyway, Terry was opening for the lead singer of the Stranglers recently, and maybe 10 years ago, and I was telling him the story. So Terry went and told the guy, he says, my label boss, he says, and his brother took pictures, and he jumped. And then he apologizes. He says, "Tell him I'm sorry." He says, "Because I was a real jerk back then." So it's just kind of how it kind of went the full circle. And
that's hilarious.
Yeah, and Terry's he's opened for so many great bands over the years. Everything from Trash Can Sinatras to Psychedelic Furs. I think they were supposed to open for the Chameleons, Vox. It's Mark Burgess, who used to be in the Chameleons, who are another great UK band. And they opened for like you said, the list is huge of all the bands he's opened for, and they've had some of their songs placed in some movies and some TV shows, which is good for them. And no one's ever going to get rich doing it, but it certainly is a lot of fun to do it.
Absolutely, 100%. That's what I say too when I talk to a lot of guys. It's like anybody that was hoping they were making money on this has quit a long time ago. And the ones that are left are still like, it's fun to do. So that's good.
Yeah, well, I used to often tell people, it's not a field that's easy to make money, but do it because you enjoy it and you love what you're doing.
I think you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at all the ones you sent me here.
Yeah, the Yellow Milk. They're from Spain. So that's the one I was telling you that he sent me a whole bunch of covers. And then the funny thing is after that, he says, I really like this band called BMX Bandits, who are basically a teenage fan club backing up Douglas, who's the lead singer in BMX Bandits. And he says, I want to do a bunch of covers. So he sent me a bunch of covers of their song, I think 6 covers. And so we released an EP tribute to the BMX Bandits done by the Yellow Melodies. So I'll send you that later too. But the guy from the Yellow Melodies, Rafa, he's a really cool guy too. He's like
He's
us.
the
He's a big,
vocalist, right?
yeah, he's a big music fan and a photographer. He does a radio show in Spain.
Okay.
He's a photographer. He organizes big Spanish indie music festivals. He has a blog where he puts up a lot of his pictures of all, and he's seen like almost every band you can think of. It's really cool.
That's
And
awesome.
so he's just a super big fan, super nice guy, and we connected with him. And he has a very, again, great like jangle pop music with a bit of a psych influence, and the music he's been releasing, and he does some really corny videos too, which is kind of cool too.
Fun.
So he's done some neat videos for the songs that they're really good. And so anyway, we'll probably release their album next year as well.
Nice.
Their next album, so we'll see how that goes, as long as I keep having money and time to do it. So we got lots of stuff in the works. I don't know if you ever heard of there was a band called The Sound. They were from England. They were kind of the post-punk.
Okay.
They were like a bit like Joy Division, Echo and Bunnyman sound. And they never got popular so much over here. Network, the label in Canada, released one of their albums called Thunder Up. But other than that, I don't think any of their albums came out in Canada. And I'm not sure about the States, but so they didn't have the greatest distribution. So a lot of people never heard their music, but if you get a chance to hear, they were phenomenal. And so they were another band that we wanted to do a tribute to. And we kind of toyed with the idea for a few years. We gathered a few covers, but it never really took off. But then there was some guys in Europe that were doing a documentary to the lead singer of the band, Adrian Borland, because he committed suicide. He suffered from depression and schizophrenia, and he eventually committed suicide. So it was a very tragic story. So that's the tribute. So when I found out that they were doing this documentary and they were trying to raise money for it, since we like losing money, we said, listen, I said, why don't we do 200 copies of a tribute album and we'll just send them to you for free? And the guy says, really? I think he was kind of shocked. But
yeah, we don't care about money here. It's fine.
Yeah. So it's great when you don't have to worry about the money side of things. And thankfully, I have a very tolerant wife who let me.
She must be thrilled by all of this. Yeah.
But so what we did is we did that, and he used it as part of the crowdfunding to raise money for the movie. And the documentary was actually finished, but sadly they hadn't put it out on a physical format. But it has been available, I think, through some of the online video.
Google Play movies or that sort of thing.
Yeah, so hopefully more people, but they've been to a bunch of festivals and won some awards with it. So hopefully in the next year, they'll get a little bit more exposure for the film. It's just talking about its life, and they interview some of the band members that are still alive and stuff. So we got a bunch of bands to do covers, but again, we got so much interest that we're hoping to do volume 2 as well. I was hoping to get that done this year, but with all the stuff that happened with family, I didn't get it finished. So it'll probably be next year. So that'll be another one of our projects that we kind of have in the works. And then, as I mentioned, we're continuing on our television personalities. We're going to be working on volume 6, but volume 5, we're doing a little diversion, and we're going to do a tribute to Edward Ball. And his band was called The Times. And they were, again, another obscure kind of mod influence band in the early days that were connected. They played on a lot of the same records with television personalities. And later on, Edward Ball went on his own, formed The Times, and then did some solo albums. And he also joined up with Creation Records, Alan McGee and Dick Green. And he played on a lot of the records that were on Creation, and helped out with Alan McGee's band Biff Bang Pow. He also played with the Boo Radleys and a few other bands as well. And so he's probably put out, I don't know, 30 or 40 albums, but again, sadly, no one's ever heard of the guy. And so we're working on a tribute, and we've already collected about 15 to 20 songs for that tribute. So we're hoping to get that early next year as well. So it'll be kind of cool because for me, it's about getting people a chance to hear his songs, who may never have had a chance to in the past. And it works kind of two ways. Sometimes it's even a band who'd never even heard of them. And then I tell them about it and I direct them to where to find some of the songs. They go, oh, this is really good. I'd like to do a cover. And so it introduces it to them, but also then once we get them made, we give away a lot of copies to radio stations and so get some radio play. And hopefully, I mean, I don't think Edward Ball's doing much music nowadays. He's kind of left. I think he got a little disillusioned, but hopefully, you know, it'll introduce his music to a few more people, which is kind of cool. That's awesome. Yeah, so those are a couple of things. We've got Skytone's been pumping out singles on Bandcamp every 3-4 months, and so we'll probably put together an album of theirs next year, combining all those singles that they put out on a digital format, just for those few people that like, you know, sort of the actual physical, hold it in their hands. Yeah. And I don't know if I sent you the album by James Clark 5. It's a guy named James Clark who used to be in a Liverpool band called the Cherry Boys. Again, well, never had a hit. No one over here probably ever heard of them, but I really loved them. They had, I think, about 4 or 5 singles, and I really liked their singles. And the song Cardamom Cafe was a big favorite of mine. And I didn't know he was still out there making albums. And then I discovered one of his albums. And then more recently, a couple of years ago, I saw he released another album, but he only did it digitally. And I tried to buy it, but on the platforms, it wouldn't sell it to Canada. So I was very frustrated. I thought, this is so weird. So he offered to send it to me free, which was very nice. And I said, listen, would you like me just to make up a bunch of copies of the CD and you know, help distribute? He said, yeah, sure, why not? And so that's why we put out that album. But it's a great album, and we got a lot of nice reviews for it, a lot of radio plays for it, and I'm very proud to have released again an album by somebody who I really liked. And the Cherry Boys were kind of again, one of those obscure bands that they've never had their stuff reissued, which is kind of sad because they would make a good album if they put all their stuff together and put it out. But a lot of the guys in the band went on to play with other bands. So a couple of guys went to the band called The Laws, and they did that song There She Goes and a few other songs that got sort of semi-hits. The drummer later went on to play in the Icicle Works, and then he plays with Noel Gallagher from Oasis, and he's played with like his list of bands he's played with is just huge. And so a lot of the guys went on to do other stuff. And there's James Clark did the theme music for the movies. There's a documentary about the death of the record stores. I can't remember the name of it now, but there's, I think his name is Graham Jones. He wrote a book and then it was made into a documentary. And it's about the record stores dying and then how it kind of revitalized. So he's done 2 books now, and one of them's a documentary, but James did some of the theme music for his documentary because it turns out that the guy who wrote the book used to manage the Cherry Boys years ago. And so there's all these connections, eh? That's crazy. And so that's sort of how we ended up doing that album. And then I've connected with a few friends over like social media, and one of the guys he's kind of a part-time musician, but he's played in bands over the years. And so we released an album by him it's a band called The Irony Board. And he has a website, and he plays in a bunch of different bands. And he's also an author. He's written a couple of books about the music business and trying to make it, which is kind of hilarious because, you know, I'm sure anyone who's been in a band's probably seen the things that he's seen and the frustration. And then he also wrote a book about Trash Can Sinatra, who he was a big fan of. And I think he had one other book, I can't remember now the name, but he sent me a bunch of his songs and I really liked them, so they reworked them, and we released a kind of a limited edition of that album. And there's another guy, Rob Morgan, who we're working on an album with him. He goes under the band Honeyborn, and that'll be out hopefully next year. So we've got a bunch of kind of albums in the works, and I keep getting more people sending me stuff, but I don't want to start anymore till we finish up, what we've got on the go.
You'll get too many, you won't be able to do them all.
Well, and the guy who works with me on the label, his name is Jamie, but he also plays in a band called Nick Danger and the Danger City Rebels, or the DCR. And they released a couple of EPs, and they were supposed to do 3 EPs, and they never finished the third of their, what they call the trilogy. Yeah, but so we're hoping to get them back to finish that up. And they also later became another band called the Social Icons and released an album under that name as well. So he's again another busy guy. He's got kids and a busy job, so he doesn't have as much time to devote to music as he, to get a lot of stuff done. But I'm hoping I can bug him to get a few more things done with his project, because he's really talented as well. And the stuff we've released by him, I don't know if I sent you because it's earlier, but I'll get you another package with some of the earlier stuff.
Jesus, man, you sent me so much stuff. It's cool. I'll take it. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, don't feel like you have to.
I joke sometimes. I hope I'm not like overwhelming people, because if somebody was willing to listen, I'll send them stuff.
These ones I've got here are still wrapped because I downloaded the digital. That's the only reason I have listened to them. But this one here, this is fantastic.
Lisa, you like this?
I love. How did you get these guys?
Okay, well, this is another interesting.
Super 8, you guys.
Yeah, so Super 8 is a guy now, Paul Ryan. He goes under the surname of a Trip. He's from Scotland, and Lisa Michaels is from California. So it's like how the two, but they connected over the internet, and they recorded everything just by passing files back, and which always amazes me how they could do this. Yeah. But the interesting thing with Lisa Michaels is I was already, before Trip or Super 8 got in touch with her, I was already a fan. I have several of her solo albums, and again, there's an interesting link to television personalities. I say that I could pretty well link anybody to television personalities. There's 6 degrees of separation. Yeah. But Joe Foster, who was one of the members of Television Personalities, and later joined Alan McGee at Creation and formed his own label called Revola Records, and later started up several other record labels. I think the last one was called Poppy Disc, but he on one of his labels, he released one of the Lisa Michaels albums where she had a band from California called the Wondermints as her backing band. And the Wondermints they're like a really talented band. They were another band that I really liked. So that I picked up that album I liked, and then I found out she had a bunch of other albums. And she actually plays with the guys from the Wondermints. And the Wondermints, interestingly, they were Arthur Lee's backing band in the more modern times. Okay. Arthur Lee asked them, because they're such a tight band, so he asked the members of that band and another band called Baby Lemonade to be his backing band. And when he got back and started touring again in recent years. So anyway, I already had a few of the Wondermints album, then I discovered Lisa Michaels, and then there's a distributor in the States who often, I like a lot of the power pop, and he collects. So she does a sound very similar to the old 60s girl groups, but for the more modern edge. Yeah. And she's played in a ton, like if you look at her link on Discogs and you see all the bands that she's played with, it's incredible. And so anyway, Trip got in touch with her, and they started exchanging ideas, and they came up with that album, which is just blows your mind.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's great. Like from the first listen,
everything from the Beach Boys to the Stones to all this different sounds going on in there. And there's a couple of songs on there that are just like You, Me, and Me and You, and
Flying Close
to the Sun.
Love that one.
Yeah, so just some beautiful songs on there. Yeah, so
I really
proud to.
Trip,
and then
Trip
even the
Ellie's
humorous
music.
ones, like the Monkey. Factory, yeah, or the monkey song where they're kind of mimicking monkey sounds and stuff, just having fun. It's a very, very enjoyable album. Yeah, I'm glad you like that, and I think they'll be really happy.
Like I said,
I'll
I
send
like
him the
all
link
these.
to the.
Please do. I'll check it out.
Yeah, and then the Peter Hall. It's only like the 4 songs and then a bonus song, but he's again super talented guy. He used to play in a band called the Play People, who again didn't very few people have heard of them. They released one 7-inch single on it's a US label called Cloudberry Records. It's run by a guy named Rock Rose, and he's a huge I call him almost like a archaeologist of indie pop music. So he has a blog where he discovers all these bands that no one's ever heard of, and he puts out singles by modern bands that have that kind of indie pop sound that he likes.
Is that how you
great music?
How did you get in touch with Rex and Christina at Big Stir?
That's a good. I'm trying to remember how we first connected.
Because that's how me and you
Twitter. Yeah. Like he mentioned that you got to get in touch with this guy Joe. He's phenomenal. He's great. He supports all these bands, and so what? Again, with we connected on internet and we sent some stuff back and forth, like first digital files, and then I said, well, I'll send you some of our product. I think they sent me some stuff first, like the first few compilations, and great stuff. And so what I told them, do you want me to help kind of spread it around? So I sent it around to a bunch of the people I know and told them a few connections, and they told me a few connections to help each other out. And two of the DJs here in Ottawa just love them. As a matter of fact, every week they're playing 3 or 4 songs off of Big Stir Records. And so they really appreciated that. So now every time they have a release, they send me a couple of copies, which is super nice of them. And I try to do the same and send them some copies of what we're releasing and kind of just exchange things that way. And I know they connected with also Future Man Records, which is another label in the States that's releasing some cool stuff. And they even included one of the Armstrong songs on one of their compilations. They do this month digital weekly single thing.
I'm in that group.
Yeah, it's pretty cool actually. So no, they've got a lot of cool stuff. And so yeah, they told me about you, and so I've told them about other people, and just kind of help spread the word. I think that's how us little people get a bit of word around.
Stick together, man. Yeah.
I just had this band. I think they're from either Germany or Norway, but they just asked if I'd be interested in releasing their new album, and I heard it. The 5 songs are really good, but I said I really can't take on much more right now. But I said, if you want, I'll help. Give you some contacts. He says, would you really? He says, he goes, you're going to regret saying that, because we'll take you up on offer. I said, no, I'll gladly help you out and share some of the music with other people if you want me to. So and I what I did is I made a list, like in a little spreadsheet, and I also on Twitter I made a list of a bunch of people who've been very favorable with us, and I'll send them some stuff. And there's some super nice people, like there's a guy, Tim Hindley, who does Dagger Zine. It's a independent music zine, like a podcast but online. I think it's a written, it still might be a written one, but he's been doing it for like 30 years or whatever. And so I send him all of our stuff, and he's often reviews everything that we'll send them. Nice. And we connected with Jack Rabbit, who does the Big Takeover magazine. It's probably the longest running independent US music magazine, and Jack likes a lot of our stuff, and so he's reviewed a bunch of our stuff. Terry also writes sometimes reviews for that magazine as well. Oh, cool. And we've met a few of the other writers as well, so they've been very nice and friendly to us. And there's a lot of nice people online that we met that have been very supportive of what we're doing. And like I said, most people, like, our music is not that hard to enjoy if you like good guitar pop music.
That's it. I think if you like good music, you're between you and Big Stir, you guys are set. You know, you got that in spades.
And we give stuff away free, so you can't go wrong.
And yeah, I didn't even like. I remember when I first talked to Rex and Christina, and I think they just show up in my email. You know, when you're in a podcast, you get emails from everybody, right? Or radio or whatever. And it was like, yeah, we're giving out this CD. I think it was at that point, it was like the Seventh Wave or something like that of their singles. And I was like, well, you're giving out CDs? Like, shit, they're
very generous. Yeah.
I'll take it. You
Like
know,
it seems like every 3 or 4 weeks I get a package.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I got from Christina. She's crazy. She just sent me I think at first it was the singles and then like 5 other CDs with that. And I was like, okay, thank you so much for that. And then I was like, I love that. Then I jokingly said, I love vinyl too, haha. And then next week, another package, like 8 more CDs with like 4 vinyls. I was like, oh my God, like what's happening? And then it just kept coming and coming.
Yeah, their band, the Arm Wars, are very good. I really
the Arm Wars.
They released a 7-inch single by Sparkle Jets UK.
See, I didn't have that, but my co-host that was on here sometimes got it, and I was like, God damn you.
Because they do some good covers of Big Star songs actually on that. You and My Sister, I think it's called. Or anyway, it's a great 7-inch. It's only a 7-inch single, but it's got some great songs on it. Yeah, no, there's so many cool labels out there. I'm also a big fan of a German label called Fire Station Records, and they're another label that goes back and discovers. Again, obscure bands that you wonder, how do they find these bands? And they're usually all quite good, and no one ever heard of them before. And recently they put out an album by this band from Liverpool called Candy Opera, and they're like, you're going, how come nobody heard this before? And it was recorded, back in the 80s, but never got released. And so they put that out, and they put out a demos album. And then recently they got the band back together to tour because they had an album coming out. And now they recorded another album, and it's coming out on another label, which is really cool, called A Turntable Friend out of Germany. And again, super nice guys. You have to get them. I have to get you connected with them, because they'll send you some free music.
Yeah, free show. I love free show. But yeah, seriously though, like you guys. Well, I don't mean like oh, it's free, so it's like no, but like it's free and you send it to me, but it's good.
But you can help, and you can help spread it, which is appreciated by the bands.
I've everything that you've sent me. I've uploaded most of it, like a song or two each, onto that SLE Radio.
Yeah, pick the songs that you like, right?
Like that, like Peter Hall, that Hold On, Hold Me, I played last, and I'm going to play it again tonight, and it's on my Germany show I've got coming up this weekend.
That's when I heard those songs, and actually beautiful. He sent me a whole album of his other band that never got released, so maybe I might even release that next year if I can find the time, because I'd love to get it released. It's great stuff.
Super guy. I'm looking forward to talking to him.
What a talented, he's very talented, and he's a big fan of The Jam, who I'm also a big fan of, and he recorded a cover of English Rose, which is an old Jam song, which is just a beautiful song. And so maybe we'll include that on a future sampler or something, because it deserves to be heard. And he's when you listen to the lyrics of the song, I think also it was the time of my life where I was dealing with my sister who was dying with cancer, and the lyrics of the song about how life is so temporary and stuff. And, it's just like his quite a talented lyricist, but also very talented guitar player and musician to be able to put something like that together. So I'm hoping to get some more. He did send me one new song that he recorded with, I don't know if you know Paul Weller from The Jam. He still tours, but his band, he plays with one of the guys from a band called The Moons from England. And I think he got the drummer from The Moons to work with him on this new song, and it's pretty good actually. So hopefully he'll have some new stuff out, and we'll do as much as we can to help support.
And I will too, if like between you guys and I listen to every kind of music there is, right? Not as much country, but punk, metal, hip hop, synthwave, electric, whatever. I'll listen
There's
to it
so
if
much.
it's good. If it's there,
Yeah.
if it's good, I'll listen to it. But yeah, like you guys, you and Big Stir really opened my eyes to a whole new world of stuff that I'd never heard anything like it before, you know? So it's
Glad
really
we
cool.
could.
I'm a super fan of it all. Like it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Well,
And this
thanks.
one here, this is great.
Oh yeah, that was the second compilation we did.
The model spy.
Yeah, isn't that great? They're from
Such
Greece.
They're from Greece. That is a friggin' tune. That's a tune.
Yeah. So that's supposed to be on. See, you just reminded me another thing we were supposed to be finishing up is our instrumental compilation. So they have that instrumental song, which was supposed to be on our instrumental compilation, which I haven't finished. So hopefully I'll get
reminder.
Hey? But yeah, it's a reminder. But they also just released an album on a small label in Greece called "Make Me Happy" just last year.
Oh wow!
And it's got some good songs on there. Again, another talented band that sadly for a few people have ever heard of. But they were also nice enough to they did a television personalities cover for us for one of our volumes as well. So we got a couple of songs by them on various. Again, I didn't send you everything we've released because I think we've got almost 50 releases now. So I didn't want to overwhelm you, but I'll get you some more stuff later on.
Whenever, but yeah, I'm not going nowhere. But yeah, for sure, that's cool. I take it. Because I'm going to start, like, what I'm going to do for my next couple of radio shows coming up, because it's Christmas, I like to do something, but I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to do, like, I'll talk to the Germany guys, I'll do, like, 2 hours for you. The next week, I'll like 2 hours for Big Stir, and then a couple of Christmas shows I'll take care of December.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's so kind.
It's honestly the least I can do because, like, if I had money, I would buy this shit off you, but I don't have it, so I will take it. I will play it as far as I can. Like these guys, this band here, these guys are so good. Exploding Flowers are phenomenal, and I really pissed off myself because I saw that the one guy from Exploding Flowers emailed me, but I didn't see it. And he was asking for an interview, but I wrote him back and said, I'm sorry, I don't know how I missed it, but let's do something at some point, and I'm just waiting.
Yeah.
And I don't expect him to, because if I waited a week and a half to hear from someone, I'd be like, well, screw you. But
yeah. Well, they might still do it later, but yeah. I think most of them, they're another band that they sent me their album about maybe about a year and a half ago and said, would you like to release it? And I heard it, I go, this is fantastic. But fantastic. I said guys, like I can't
release everyone's album. That's fantastic. Can't release
stuff. And I said, and you know what I said, why don't you talk to some other like labels, because I said we're not really going to do you a huge favor on a small label like us. Go talk to him. But and he said okay. So anyway, I said, if you want, maybe we could do a small CD run if you can get someone else to do a vinyl. And the reason we don't do vinyl, because I do love vinyl. I have huge vinyl stuff, but the problem is so expensive. And with our business model where we give away most of our stuff, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I can only lose so much money.
So much money a quarter before I have to just sit up for a second.
Before my wife says, okay, enough. And also the other thing with vinyl is, you probably know this, is to ship or to mail stuff. It's nuts. Like I remember buying one vinyl album for a guy in England. The album was like $28, but the shipping cost $40 to send one vinyl, because I was putting some nice packing so it wouldn't get wrecked, right? Yeah. But by the time I put the packing and everything, it was too heavy, and it was like $42 to send in one album.
I hate that. I especially buying vinyl from like Europe. Like there's this great Canadian artist called Andy Schaaf. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he has a
name, but I don't know any of his music.
He's from here, but he lives in Toronto now, but he spent some time over in Germany and in Europe, living over there for a while. He's on the same label that Tom Waits is on. I can't remember what the hell it's called. Doesn't matter. Anyways, I was looking to buy one of his vinyls, and it's like, it's like, $25 for the record, but $35 for shipping. Fuck, man, I don't want to pay. And I was even going to get one. There's a great band I just found called The Emperor of Ice Cream.
Yeah, they're great, aren't they?
See, there you go. You've heard of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I bought some of their stuff on Bandcamp. I have it in
Nice.
my collection, but
Deadly.
I've been
So
eyeing the
good.
album.
I
There's
wanted that vinyl. I was like, fuck, I gotta buy that vinyl. It was like $40
yeah.
shipping. I was like, God
I
damn
think
it.
they're from Ireland,
They're
aren't
from
they?
Ireland. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
there's a lot of good bands in Ireland.
Yeah.
Another one I used to like was the Franken Walters,
Okay.
and another one from that were like mod was the Blades. They were from Ireland, just phenomenal bands. And one of them called Into Paradise. They were kind of the post-punk, but the guy from that band actually is doing a cover for our sound tribute because
Nice.
Adrian Borland, before he passed away, he actually helped produce one of the albums that they did when he was in the band Into Paradise, and they're from Ireland, and we connected with him. Super nice guy. So yeah, it's all these connections. It's just kind of keeps going. And I probably took way more than your allotted time.
No, I don't really have a lot of time, to be honest with you. It's fine. I just like talking to people, so it's good. It's
yeah.
all good.
Yeah, no, I don't get me started. I can talk for hours about music. It's so much fun. It's stuff that, we and all the stories that, over the years, we met so many bands and seen so many shows. It's just been, I think Terry described like music, it's not working, it's playing music. It's something that's fun. And so I thought that's such a good quote.
That's exactly it.
Whoever said that, and with me, sadly, I don't have any musical ability, but I just enjoy.
You know what though? There's so many people that's it. The world needs more people that actually
I always say
enjoy it.
I can play a mean stereo.
Yeah, hell yeah, that's all you need, Wally. Not a boy.
Yeah, you play in a band too, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I do vocals. I rap with a couple projects. I'll send you a Bandcamp code if you want to check it out. And that's like you talk about how Lisa Mickles sent everything back and forth. I'm in a project where that's what we do, because I got one guy's in Finland, one guy's in Virginia, the other guy's in Wales, and I'm here. So we met on Twitter and we just sent
just connect. It's pretty cool, eh?
It's fun. Yeah, we've done 2 albums already, so it's good.
Yeah, it's pretty neat to be able to do that. The technology now, eh?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah, for sure, that's good. That's good.
So it keeps me busy. Like I know people are saying they're bored, but I haven't had time to get bored.
I haven't either.
I'm sure all the stuff you have here keeps you busy, and it's stuff I enjoy doing. So
that's just it. You don't feel like you're busy, right? It's like you got a ton of shit to do, but it's like, yeah, but is it that bad? Because like I love music, so
it was
either recording it, promoting it, or doing a radio show, or talking to people.
It was a little bit. Yeah, it was a little bit worse when I was working, because then you'd have to stay up really late. And, then you got to go to work the next morning, because the only time you'd have time is after the kids and everyone went to bed. And so a lot of times you'd be up a little bit too late trying to get a project finished. And when you're like, when we were doing those compilations and you have 40 bands, it was a lot of work, because you got to send emails to these bands and then send them to the people who are doing the artwork, and then just to coordinate it all. It was just, sometimes I wonder, what was I thinking? But they turned out amazing, and we had so many great submissions, and it's a joy to go back and now listen to these things and thinking, wow,
you look at everything that
we actually did this.
Yeah, look at everything you've helped put out. Just because you were a fan, you liked it, and you said, hey, I'll put that up for like that's insane, man.
And the bands like it too, because we don't like, how some labels, they want to share everything. We let the bands keep their title to everything. We don't want any ownership. We don't keep any digital sales. They keep the only thing we do is we keep the money that we sell, the few CDs that we sell, and it's basically to help offset some of the costs. And to be honest, we've never even broken even on anything, but that's okay. It's, to me, the joy of doing it and getting that music out there is worth more than anything. And then all the music I get back free in exchange is more than worth any investment that I've made in it. So I'd love to be in a situation where you can actually get so much money where I can give the bands money back, but we just never been in that. So what we do is we said, listen, we'll give you, a couple 100 copies of your CD, and you can sell them, And
keep that or whatever.
Keep that, and if you want more, we're pretty generous. We'll give you more too if we have them.
I'll give you some of the other bands on our label too. Here you go.
Exactly. We usually do that too. So, but that way, the worst thing I always hated is bands who sell their music and then they basically sell their soul, right? Because they don't own any of their music, and then if it does get popular, they're not making any of the money, which I think is so wrong, and it's sad. You hear those stories all the time, right? So I always believe that whoever that's their music, they should own it. Just give me permission to help you promote it and release it. And so I think a lot of bands like that kind of philosophy. I don't think too many labels would ever survive doing it the way we do it, but like we're doing it for a different reason. We're not, like I said, it's not a business. We never intended it to be a business. I don't want it to be a business. It's more for fun. I have my day job, who gave me the source of income, so I'm not starving. And Terry said he'd help out if I'm ever under a bridge there.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, no, we're working with like-minded people who understand and that they're nice people and they're a pleasure to work with. Eh?
Yeah, 100%.
And we look the same for people. Like I'll send free stuff to anybody if they're decent people and they want to help you. If they're real jerks, like sometimes you deal with some people and they're just real jerks. And you think, I remember one time we dealt with one distributor, and it's like I kept sending them and they sold everything and they wanted more stuff, but they never pay you. And I'm thinking, I don't need to deal with these people because you're not really helping.
I'm the label, yeah.
Like if you want to make money, but at least give something back to the bands. Like don't be jerks.
Yeah.
So but there are some really nice distributors, like Cool Cat in the States is super to deal with, small bands and small labels. And another one is Jigsaw Records in the States. They have a little shop.
I've heard of,
yeah, and they have a little online store. And in England, Norman Records is pretty cool. And so we have a few places that'll stock our stuff, but we don't, again, we don't have a huge distribution, which is if you're thinking you're going to make a lot of money, stay away from our label. Go to a real label.
Go to a real label if you want to make money. I'm just going to give away your shit for free and make you sell your own CDs. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want someone to help you promote or, and get your music out there, which is most of the bands that we work with.
But that's what people need, right? Because they can sell the shit themselves, but, to have...
Nowadays with Bandcamp and everything, there's really no reason. You can start your own label and just make and distribute your own stuff. There's places in the States where you can get 100 CDs made for like just over $100.
Yeah.
And you can sell them at a reasonable price. I mean, the postage is the killer, but but if you're selling within your own country, which sadly most of the people who like our music tend to be in England or Japan or Germany, so it seems like we sell our stuff, I think, for anywhere from $12 to $15, but the postage is usually 11 or 12, and then PayPal fees. So we joked, like, in New Order, there's their story where they made a really fancy cover for their Blue Monday single. They said they lost money on every single. Well, that's pretty us. We lose money on every sale, but we know we're doing it and we're having fun, and so we're doing it for the joy of music. And we've over the years gathered a good handful of very appreciative fans and loyal fans that they'll buy pretty well anything that comes out on the label. So that you've got sort of some like-minded people there, which is kind of nice to see. And you get some kind words, and emails back like, wow, I couldn't believe you sent me 4 CDs. I only bought one for $10.
It's insane.
So it's just the nice, you made somebody's day. We're sort of like the make people feel good during all this lockdown.
It's helped me. God knows that for sure.
Yeah, music does help a lot, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was a nice mood shift for what I had been listening to. It's like, oh fuck, good, something brighter.
And there's so much there, like you say, there's so much out there, eh? There's just it's fun to discover. And I'm still discovering
Awesome.
cool stuff from everywhere. It's great. And Bandcamp is a bit of a curse in some ways because there's so much music, right?
There's
And,
so much.
And the nice thing I like about Bandcamp is you're going directly to the label or
Right to the label
artist.
or to the artist.
So, and so whenever they have like the free Fridays, I try to buy a few extra things so that you know that it's going to go right into the hand of, you know, musicians who could probably use a few extra bucks, or labels that are starving or having a hard time.
Yeah. I hope they keep that up. I'm not sure if they're doing it.
Yeah,
next year, but I think they would. I think that, you know what, they probably make so much money.
That was such a smart business move, because I don't think, I know for myself and many other people I know, they wouldn't have bought as much stuff, but because they did that, they bought more. And I'm sure that was one of the smartest business moves they've ever made, which is why I think they kept doing it. They're thinking, sure, they don't make a ton of money, but let's face it, once the rest of the month now, if you're a fan and you follow them, you get a notice that they release something. They're making money off those sales, right? So I'm sure they've got a lot more fans now, a lot more followers, and people buying.
More sales and more steady stream for everybody. Like Bandcamp's fees aren't unreasonable. Like I think they take like
it's
$3,
only a small percentage,
$3 a sale or something like that. Like that's not bad. Like if you're selling a CD for $20, you're still pocketing 17. Like that's decent.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. Yeah, you can't complain.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all, man. That's good. Well, my friend.
Yeah, I think it's time probably let you get some sleep.
No,
your kids will be up early.
Yeah, I'm always up. I'm up till like 2 a.m. all the time. It's fun. But
yeah. I got to get up a little bit early tomorrow for some stuff. Usually driving kids and doing other things. So
stuff you gotta do.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's been wonderful getting the support. I appreciate it. Really nice chatting with you too.
100%.
I think I probably hogged most of the conversation.
No, that's fine. It's good. I'm happy that we got to talk, because I'm gonna keep pumping this as far as I can.
Yeah, you haven't heard the last of me yet.
No, that's good. I hope not. I want to.
Careful.
Okay, and like I said, but like I said, let's do something where, you know, I kind of have the same deal with Rex and Christina, where I'd like to do even once a month. If you guys are putting stuff out, just come on, tell me about it.
Sure.
I'll spread it out. We'll sort it out in January after Christmas.
Yeah, I will probably going to take a break for a couple of months before we put anything out.
Yeah, whatever you start.
We had a little spurt where, you know, I had a bit of time after, and we put out 4 releases in a few months, and that kind of need to take a break because it gets expensive. And so early next year we'll have a few, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll do maybe another, and I'll talk about all the releases.
Yeah, just let me know.
I will. Yeah. Thanks so much, Joe. Really appreciate that.
I appreciate you, man. I hope you guys stay safe. You guys have a Merry Christmas if I don't talk to you. Yeah,
thanks very much. And you take care, and hope your family stays safe and well. All the best.
All the best, buddy. You take care of yourself.
Bye now.